Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to guide you through a fairly short journaling process. You don't need anything except your journal or your scrapbook or whatever you like to use to write or create in. If you're interested in doing something like this live with me, I run a free 45-minute online journaling group that meets every Wednesday from 7 to 7:45 p.m. Pacific. It's called Myth and Mirror. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and email me. I'll also put a link in the video description where you can kind of like RSVP or sign up just so that you kind of get more like up to the minute announcements, like if we're not going to be meeting a particular week for whatever reason. But generally we meet every Wednesday. Anyway, so for today in this video, just go ahead and follow along, kind of like lean back into the process. And really the idea here is to just kind of see what comes up, not to necessarily come into something like this with an agenda or a real specific focus necessarily. And just before I go into the practice, just a little bit about me. I'm trained as a therapist. I'm a registered associate marriage and family therapist with a background in drama therapy as well as coaching. So I bring that lens, that kind of my professional lens, into how I kind of design and think about moving through writing processes, writing practices. So today the creative writing practice basically has 3 parts. So the first one is word generation, followed by transformation, and then expansion, and just kind of go through it, step by step. Okay. The first part of this is what I think of as a word spill. So what you can do is you can just pause the video when I say pause. I'm going to explain it first, and set a timer for like a minute or so. And during that time, you will write 20 to 30 words or however many you end up getting in a minute, kind of as fast as you can. So no sentences, no editing, no pausing, just words, just whatever word is kind of coming up for you that just like pops into your head. It could be like, you could think of like if it's a movie or a short story or a book or, a song lyric, just whatever kind of pops up, fragmentary, just kind of writing it down, just like a word spill basically. So when you feel ready to do that, you can go ahead and pause this video and set your timer for a minute, and then when you're done, come back to the video. All right, so the second part now, after you've done the word spill, is to distill it. So go ahead and look at the list of everything that you wrote and circle 3 words or 3 phrases, 3 movies, 3 whatever that stand out to you for whatever reason. It doesn't need to make sense. You don't need to know why. Just kind of looking over your list and noticing, 3 words that for whatever reason feel charged to you. Maybe they feel like strange. Maybe they have like a sticky and emotional stickiness quality to them. Or just for no real reason, just seem to kind of feel very alive to you for any reason. So if you need more time to do that, I would say maybe like no more than 2 to 3 minutes. You can pause the video and then hop back in. But once you have those 3 words, now you are going to use them to generate lines or sentences. And I say lines versus sentences because they can be very fragmented at this point, right? So you're basically going to take those 3 words and combine them in any way that you want, and write lines, basically. And you could even use them to generate a new word, right? So if 2 of my words were moon and balloon, I might put those together and create a word moon balloon, right? And I could now write a sentence about the object moon balloon, okay? Don't try to make this good. Don't try to make this poetic. This is more about generating material and generating ideas versus writing something that's like polished and finished, right? So the intention is to have the writing be fragmented, poetic, kind of awkward, feeling like disjointed, It can be literal. It could certainly be literal, but really kind of a sense of the unexpected, right? So kind of what's underlying this idea that when unrelated words are placed together, something new can start to emerge, right? Like moon balloon, right? Like when I put moon and balloon together, I get this idea of a moon balloon. Like, what is a moon balloon? Now I can kind of write a sentence or a phrase or a fragment that kind of puts a little bit of context around that, right? So again, not forcing meaning, just kind of following combinations, being very spontaneous about this, not overanalyzing, but just kind of seeing what wants to emerge. So if you need more time to write your 3 to 5 short lines, you can pause it, of course. But the next part now is about shifting and renaming. So now it's about shifting one part of what you wrote. So take a few, moments, maybe you need a minute or so, to go back, reread the lines that you just wrote, and choose one that feels the most interesting or strange or slightly charged to you, again, for whatever reason. You don't need to know why. So just go ahead and reread one of those lines and just choose the one that kind of stands out to you the most for any reason. Could also be the one that is like the most boring or the most aversive. It doesn't need to be, it could have maybe like a negative charge to it too. And then the next part of step 2 of part 2 is to choose one word to work with. So within that line, you should have those 3 words that you initially chose. And so in this line that you're working with, from those original 3, pick one that you want to start to play with. So if you want to pause, go ahead. I would say take no more than about a minute for this. Again, we're not overthinking any part of this right now. And then now step 3 of part 2 is to rename it. So instead of like defining that word literally, the idea here is to start generating alternative versions of it. So thinking about what it feels like to you, like the experience of that word, maybe what it does in your life, or maybe what it relates to emotionally for you. So short phrases here, right? So maybe it's like mirror. If the word is mirror, you might rename it as something I avoid. Or a place I hesitate. If it's like key, what I keep returning to. Or even for something, a word like moon, where I disappear. Okay, so it's not about aiming for being super correct, just variations. And I actually ran a practice like this live in a group. And I sometimes when I'm asking something like this, and it can feel a little challenging for some people to think in this way, I really like to offer a lot of sentence stems or kind of ways to start to generate, for in this case, different versions of the word. So if you hop into one of my my free myth and mirror sessions, I provide a lot of scaffolding because I want these creative practices and these creative ways of thinking to be very accessible to folks. Okay, so step 4 of part 2 is to replace. So now, from those phrases that you generated, those different variations of the meaning of the word, personal meanings, pick one of them that feels the most alive or slightly surprising, or that just seems to call to you or resonate to you for whatever reason. Okay? So take a few moments for that. Again, if you need to pause the video, totally fine. And now what you're going to do is you're going to rewrite the original line that you chose using the new version instead of the original word. So if it was like a moon or balloon or whatever, and I replaced moon with where I disappear, I would rewrite my original line if it had moon balloon in it, maybe like moon, taking a balloon to the place I disappear, right? And you can rewrite it in a few ways. You can play around with it, right? And the idea is to let it be imperfect, and which is totally fine, right? Because that's where the meaning is going to start to shift, right? Letting things get a little like disjointed and awkward and strange, right? Strange in the sense that you wouldn't necessarily sit down and like write that top of mind, but when you see it on a page, things are starting to take shape, or more amorphous ideas that are not immediately top of mind are starting to have room to emerge and take shape, because we're not filtering them, we're not censoring them, we're not shutting them down. Okay? So again, pause if you need to, or move on to part 3, which is continuation. So now this is about following those kind of strange ideas. So once you have your sentence rewritten, you're not explaining it, but you're continuing the thread. So moving forward in some way, and here I'll, some sentence stems, the next sentence could be, and then completing that sentence, or because of this, ... Meanwhile, and then launching into that sentence, or somewhere I notice, and then really kind of letting the writing and the ideas unfold without trying to control it too much, like letting it be where it wants, letting it go where it wants to go, and kind of following that momentum. Okay? So you might want to pause here for, I don't know, maybe like 3 to 5 minutes or so. Again, I like to kind of keep my like journaling processes in each section kind of contained. Otherwise, I feel like this could really go into like hours and hours. And I like things that are a little bit more sharp and focused. So the next step is what I call harvest. And this is where you pause and go back and reread what you've written. If you wanted to, you could even start all the way back and looking over your word spill. And kind of stepping back and just noticing, does anything that you wrote connect to your life right now in some way? So maybe a feeling, or a person, or a situation, or a tension, or maybe nothing. Nothing seems really connected, like, at all. And all of that's valid. Whether you find some kind of connection, whether you don't, it's all okay. It's all valid, right? You're not required to extract meaning. You're never required to find meaning where there isn't any, right? And sometimes the value is simply in the movement of the writing itself, simply in the experience that, you just had through this process. Okay? So you can take as much time as you want for the reflection. Again, I would keep it to, 2 to 3 minutes or so. And then an optional closing prompt, a pocket portal, if you will, is for you to just write down one thing that you are taking from this process. So maybe it's a word, or a phrase, or a feeling, or nothing at all. You're not taking anything from it. The value was in the process and the experience. You're closing the book and you are moving on. So that was this process. If you enjoyed this kind of structured creative reflection, I host a weekly space called Myth and Mirror, where we do longer guided writing and symbolic exploration together, live in community. And I'll put details below if that is something that you would like to step into.